Okay, we are live. Like there's no other way to put it. We live now. What's going on, everybody?
Hey.
Christopher Bartley here. I'm with a special. I can't even call you a guest, man. Like we boys now, man.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
I'm here with Eliot Brooks. He
Hey.
is a strategist coach, and so I have the intro and everything set up, Eliot. But what I want to do is let's do things a little bit differently. I want you to just introduce yourself. But before we get into all of that, guys, what we're going to be talking about today is the conversations that we tell ourselves, the mental conversations, but also getting over the hugest obstacle to achieving something, which is you. You are your greatest obstacle. So what is it that you've been telling yourself that's preventing you from getting to a particular place or achieving a particular goal? But then also, we can look at the other side too. What have you been saying to yourself that allows you, or that has allowed you in the past to achieve something? So Eliot is going to talk about that with us today, but this is more of an informal conversation, y'all. So it's not really like a formal interview as much as, me and him just chatting. However, we're going to get the formalities out the way. So just tell them more about just who you are, what you do, and we'll just dive right into it.
Yeah. So Eliot Brooks, I'm currently in the Bossier, Shreveport area of Louisiana, do strategy coaching. Also am a pastor and a radio co-host of a show, the #1 gospel show in Shreveport and in the regions. Just had to put that in there. Number one. Shout out to Pastor CJ with that. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Takesha. We have 2 kids and have another one on the way. So it's a lot happening over in the Brooks family. And I just love to empower leaders who are struggling to find clarity when it comes to their ideas and vision. Yeah. And I've been blessed to help a lot of leaders thus far and assist them in finding clarity with their ideas, their vision, and putting action and legs to those things and making it happen, executing them.
Yeah, that's good. What has been one of your biggest, see, I'm already doing it, like already entering interview mode, man. Don't worry. We're going to switch. We are going to switch. This is going to be different. But I'm just curious because we didn't really talk about this before. But, as a strategy coach, what has been the biggest hurdle that you have so far been working with people to just execute, to just do, to kind of allow them to have that aha moment in realizing, oh, really? That's all it took?
Yeah.
What has it been so far? And I know that there are different things, but perhaps you might have found a pattern so far in the majority of the people that you've been working with.
I don't know if this answering it correctly or in the way that you're asking, in the context you're asking, but one of the frustrations, what come to my mind quickly when you asked was the frustrations that I found thus far overwhelmingly is I think there's kind of an idea that your coach is supposed to answer your questions, like almost like therapy. Like I go to therapy and I want you to tell me what to do. Whereas more so, I'm helping you find clarity so you can decide what you need to do, rather than just sitting and waiting for me to give you kind of the whole story, because you have to own it. If you don't own it, most of the time it does not get done. So I'm just here to help. I'm here to assist and to push you along, to show to bring about accountability. So it's trying to get past that part of give me the answers and then I move on to no, you have the answers. I'm just helping you find clarity so that you can see what you already possess.
That's good. So listen, let's be real, man. One of the things that a lot of us deal with, coaches and consultants especially, we wrestle with imposter syndrome, man. Like I struggle with it. Even when I don't think I'm struggling with it, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
Is it something that we can ever fully overcome, or is it something that we can kind of just use as leverage to push forward? So let me, listen, bro. So let me back up. There's this movie, and I don't know, it's not a horror film. It's like a psychological, maybe it's a psychological thriller, but some may call it a psychological horror, but it's called The Babadook. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Babadook movie, but it's crazy. It's not one of these once again, it's not like this traditional, horror film with spirits that come out of the night. It ain't like that. However, it's hugely psychological, and I don't want to spoil it, but at the end of the movie, I guess I am going to spoil it. So spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
At the end of the movie, the protagonist, she finds a way to contain the beast in the basement and really kind of, if my memory serves me correctly, really is feeding it. Like she's taming it, domesticating it almost, and it's still a nasty creature, but she's found a way to coexist with it. Is the imposter syndrome like that, man? Like, because when I think about the days, where maybe I'm a little bit too heavy on social media, I think that there's a correlation with how the comparison trap and imposter syndrome might also, be created. Or is it designed to be something that is supposed to be eradicated? Like, talk to me on that, man.
That's good, man. I'll answer it like this. For me, I think that there's balance in this process of believing in yourself.
Yeah.
And doing what you believe you should be doing and projecting that, being able to show that I know what I'm doing. But at the same time, in those areas where perhaps you may not be as clear, not as balanced, not as foundational, being able to have kind of, in my practice, this word that I call faith, being able to have this in that gray area to fill that up in what you may not be able to see, but you believe you can do and that you practice, because every person, every foundational person, anybody that has been successful, they had to go through this process of practicing. And practice is not always behind closed doors. Practice is being on the front lines, putting the work in and just figuring your way through. You will be surprised how many people you have been helped or assisted or empowered or inspired by, who they're literally trying to figure their way through this thing. And I think that there's a need for that. I think there is a need to be unsure, but I also believe there's a need for, you need to know, on the other hand, at least something of what you're doing, somewhat of what you're doing, if that makes any sense. Hopefully that kind of answers that.
Yeah. So this idea of practice is hitting home. Listen. The power of habit. Hey, so if Renee doubted, if you're watching this, I still have the copy. I still have the copy you gave me. If you want it back, I gotta finish it first.
Hey,
but I've gotten enough. I've gotten enough from this. So the understanding when we're talking about how you practice, what you're telling me is that it is not my job to try to fight or to remove imposter syndrome as much as it is practicing the things that will diminish the syndrome. Is that kind of like what you're?
I think that's a very accurate way of putting it.
Because I think of another movie called cinephile. We watch these movies. A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe, right? And in A Beautiful Mind, once again, spoiler alert, at the end of the movie,
just tell all the movies.
At the end of the movie, he still has. So he suffers from schizophrenia, right? Probably schizoaffective disorder, but he's having these delusions, right? Or hallucinations. He's seeing particular people, not just voices, but actual people who he befriends, and they don't exist. At the end of the movie, what he ends up doing, wow, I'm just making the connection now. The Babadook and the Beautiful Mind. What he ends up doing is they ask him, because they're about to give him, I think it's the Nobel Prize for in science. Man, I'm totally butchering it, but I think it was like a Nobel Prize. Long story short, they need to qualify whether or not he's crazy. They don't want to be embarrassed, when the big event comes and, he might have some sort of traumatic episode or some breakdown. And but he's asked, are they with you right now? Like, do you see them right now? And he says, yeah, they're with me right now. I can see them, but they're in a sense muted. They're sedated. They're there, but they no longer have power over my mind. Powerful. So he's living with these images that he can see, these fictitious people that he can see. However, they no longer, and I wonder if we're talking about, the imposter syndrome being one of the reasons why we get in our own way, by comparing, because it's really through comparing, right? Yeah. Your imposter syndrome comes through the fear of somebody calling you out on on what they thought you were, or what they thought you were able to produce. Yeah. And somehow you think that somewhere along the line, you're going to get found out. Mm-hmm. Your card is going to get pulled, and then they say, man, we thought that you were the person for X, Y, and Z, but we are disappointed, or, you didn't meet our expectations. And I think it's both, and you compare yourself to other professionals or experts in this space. And then you say, man, I am not as good as. Yes. So therefore, the value, that I'm able to provide will probably not meet the standard of, let's just use a client who's used to a particular type of, quality of deliverables. Yeah. We're saying it's just, nope. You don't have to fight that as much as creating new practices that will help you. Oh, wow. That's okay. So I pulled up this book. I pulled up the Power of Habit because they break down a habit into 3 areas. So this is what a habit boils down to. You need a cue, you need a routine, and you need a reward. Mm-hmm. Listen here. It has and is continuing to change my mind. So I just want to read this right quick. So Eliot, man, when I read this, I was like, okay. So first, the cue is a trigger that tells your brain to go into automatic mode. All right. And so to tell you which habit to use. So that's what the cue is. The routine, which is number 2, is a physical, mental, or emotional. That's what it can be. It can be physical, mental, or emotional, and it can be incredibly complex or fantastically simple. Right? So that's the routine. And then the reward is, this helps your brain to figure out if this particular loop is worth remembering for the future. That's crazy, man. So rewards can range from food or drugs that cause physical sensations to emotional payoffs, such as the feelings of pride that accompany praise or self-congratulations. Here's the thing that hit me is they are suggesting in this book that habits never really disappear. And so what we have to do is, we have to restructure the habit. Like, so for instance, if a particular reward is like this euphoric feeling from, let's say, from drinking, because I think they use an example like for drugs or from drinking, they say, is it the drugs or the drinking that's really the reward? The reward is how you feel after, maybe not the hangover and such, after, right? And so what they are suggesting is experiment with your habits. So maybe the cue stays the same, right? So there's something that triggers, like I'm feeling down. It's the routine that needs to be shifted. So instead of using substances, you have a conversation. Yes. And so having that conversation could very well lead to the same reward of, oh, wow, I feel much lighter. Just from talking with this particular person, or just from having a social, social interaction. And I'm thinking as I'm looking at this thing, in your experience, man, like what has been some of the ways, bro, that we can practice overcoming ourselves being the biggest obstacle? Because I've never seen habits in this way, by the way, like in such a surgical way. That's good. Cue, routine, reward, and the reward really stays the same. It's just really replacing other parts to fit the reward that is already there. Like, oh wow, that's deep. Practices, man. Hit me with some practices.
I think what comes to mind immediately is environment. I think that our environment is a great definition of the direction we're going in. Those who are around us, the way, like simple, my mind, I'm very creative. So I need art around me. I need motivational quotes around me. I need to, you see behind me, I have 2 things that I try to read every day that keeps me focused. Having the right people around you. That's one of the shifts that I had to make was transitioning from one environment to another environment from a group dynamic standpoint. Having changing mindsets that were around me so that I can be around the people that are in direction I'm trying to go in. And I think that's very important in that process of routine when it comes to who you're talking to. what's around you. You know, if you have things around you that trigger something or cause you to feel a certain way, we don't even know. There's many of us that may not even know that there's just a picture or a video or the fact that we on this certain app for so long that will cause us to take a dive.
Yeah.
And it has to change. So for me personally, one of the things I had to do was I had to take what I call social media breaks, like completely get off of social media multiple times throughout the year. I think that social media is necessary, especially for people who have their own businesses and are trying to reach, have reach. You need social media, but I think it's important to find a sabbatical, if that makes any sense, within your social media life. To get away, because we can find ourselves. For me, what I was doing was, no matter how successful I would become, I continued to look at someone else who was way ahead of the game in my mind.
Listen, man.
And it didn't click how serious it was getting, how depressed I would get, how frustrated. And it'd be like, I'm sitting on a W, but still feeling like an L. And it's like, no matter what you do, you're just constantly comparing yourself. And it's unhealthy. And I mean, many of us see now the studies during the pandemic of how unhealthy that is it has gone to it's been magnified through the pandemic, as many people have started to study these things and show proof to the fact that social media really takes people out, because all we're doing is we take snapshots of our success, never of our failures. So what people don't realize is actually, like, if we were to really write a photographic book on success, it will be full of photographs of failure, because it's not the end destination that got you to where you are. It is the whole trip and journey that took place beforehand. For example, I know everybody in the country has probably seen that photo that went viral some years ago of the iceberg or something, where you had I don't know if you remember that, where you had like the success, this little tiny little thing, and then under the water was this grinding
everything that people
all
don't
the no's
see.
You heard and all. It's like that's the real beauty. We put value into the last picture. Like, okay, I'm going to show everybody, hey, me taking a picture with Jeff Bezos. Like, nah, it is the fact that you had to do all this for 15 years to get to that one moment.
Right.
One thing I saw the other day was Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt, the Jamaican great runner of all time in my book. He posted a video of him, of how long it takes him to train. Years and years and years just to run a 10-second race.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's it. It is that journey. That's the beautiful part of it. Not the, and I'm kind of getting away from things, but the point is, to answer the question again, is this idea of changing your environment, being intentional about your environment when it comes to certain triggers, perhaps that brings a negative connotation, and then changing the people in your environment as well. To identify the direction you want to go in and place people, or get to know people, network with people that can help, who are already on that pathway and can be an asset to your thinking.
Yes. So you know what? Like, as you just, okay. This is good, because I'm looking at like 3 components that you just broke down: the environment, the people in the environment, and then focusing on the journey. But okay, so how does this connect? Because this is interesting. So we're talking about the power of habit just now, and you can surgically break down a habit into 3 areas. You've got a cue. So for those of you who are just tuning in, we're talking about, how do you overcome the greatest obstacle to achieving something, which is yourself. So we've looked at the idea of imposter syndrome. Your goal isn't to try to remove or to battle or to, eliminate the syndrome, as much as it is developing new practices and new habits that will reduce the focus. So we looked at a couple of movies. Y'all know I like movies. So, it's visual storytelling. So we looked at The Babadook, right? Psychological thriller that deals with this monster in the basement. End of the movie. I already gave the spoiler alert. So end of the movie, the monster still exists. They just know how to coexist with it in the same house. We looked at A Beautiful Mind, same thing, schizophrenia. He has these hallucinations with these fictitious people that exist in his mind, and they never left, but he mastered how to manage the influence that they would have in his life. I think there were like 3 predominant characters that he wrestled with. So they were able to manage these things. What you're saying is, that's cool, but here's how we now practically deal with this thing. We figure out the environment, and I think that ties into the cue part of the habits, right? Developing new habits, where you have cues. You need to isolate what is triggering you to create or to follow a routine that causes us to start comparing or to start adopting the imposter syndrome. And that's just one of the things, right? When we come to us being our major obstacle. But then we have the actual routine itself, and then the reward. Is there a reward? Is there a reward to comparing ourselves with other people? Is there a reward to succumbing to the imposter syndrome? What is the reward? Because here's the thing. We keep doing certain things because there is a payout. So what's the payout? Like, why is it that it's easier for people to say, no, I'm just going to develop new practices?
Yeah.
Versus, nah, I'm just going to go ahead and stay in this comparison trap for a little bit longer because, I want to feel. What's the reward? Because, because we're looking at this just from one perspective, at least right now. You're saying environment, people, the journey, right? The path.
Yeah.
Why isn't that enough to start transitioning or transferring our thoughts and our understanding, our intentions to more positive and more empowering practices versus the defeatist mentality? That was a long question, but I'm really trying to figure out. There's a reward. So clearly there's a reward. Is there a reward in being a defeatist? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
I think there's, it's a pretty deep point. I think that the way I'm taking it is kind of with in this context. So I think that there are number one, we have to be clear on the definition of what that reward or that success or that goal is. Being able to clearly identify that for us, and then have milestone rewards, if that makes any sense. So you have the big picture, and then you have the milestones. I'm here. Like, for example, I'll be transparent. For me, there has been in the last year and a half a major shift in the way that I've tried to think of things or have thought of things. And in that process, it has caused for me to have to change certain things in my environment, to start hanging out with different type of people and getting to know them and understanding how their mind work. Because it's a different world with people that's really killing the game out here. And to be around those individuals has caused me to start to naturally look at things differently. My lens has started to, if you have cameras, you're focused, you're trying to sit there manually focus the lens. It has automatically started to do that because of how I'm looking at other people, the moves they're making, the conversations that we have had. It's caused for me to think differently. It's caused me to act differently. So in that process, I have to identify what the major goal is. And then how do I set milestones to celebrate? So for example, one of the things I celebrated this year was I wanted to start my business. I want to do that forever. And I started the process this year in January or February this year. And I literally, I got my first client and I celebrated. That was my celebration. When I received my first client early this year, it was like, okay, that's a milestone that was rewarded through the action of changing the environment, through the action of of being around different type of people, getting information that I didn't even know was there. That's the thing that blows my mind, is that it's this process of when you're around different people, you start to be exposed to things you didn't know even existed. And mentalities you didn't know that you could adopt, because you're not born with these. I mean, there maybe, it depends on your ideology, but I do not believe that we're just born with it. I think it's practicing what we're exposed to. What you're exposed to will be a huge indicator to the direction you go in, which is why I really believe and advocate that we should find ways to expose ourselves. Expose ourselves to learn new things, to understand new ways. So within that, back to the point, is this being able to identify what is a win. And that's the reward to the action of that cue or that routine. And so you may not obtain the major goal in one sitting or in 10 sittings, but you have different markers to identify I'm making progress. Because what caused us to use that comparison in a negative way is the fact that we're not able to identify progress. So it seems like I'm not moving while other people are just flying past me. When the truth is, if you really look at what you've done over the last week, 2 months, or a year, you have made a lot of progress, major progress. But without identifying that, you have no idea that you've moved so far. You just in your mind, you're still in the same place you were 5 years ago. It's like, no, even if it was one step is greater than staying in place. And that's something to be celebrated.
So I'm going to summarize this. So failing to, because I'm going to put this in the comments, because I think this was gold right here. Failing to identify progress or the win causes us to what?
Failing to identify the win or the progress perhaps cause us to, the way I'm thinking about in my head is to attribute others as successful while we're failures, not understanding that the failure that we are identifying to ourselves, or could I say, what's the word? Accusing ourselves with is not reality. It's only through the lens of, let me say it like this, Chris. I'll say it like this. We are better stewards at identifying other people's wins than ourselves, because our focus is on their progress while we're missing our progress. Okay. So identifying the wins or the lack of identifying the wins of our progress cause us to be more stewards of other people's wins and structures. And it's like looking out the window, just watching other cars go by when you have a car sitting right there in the driveway that you could be driving to go by as well.
Wow. Like you know what? I'm gonna throw that in the chat. So I put here, failing to identify progress or the win causes us to focus more on our failures while comparing the achievements of others. That is wow. You mentioned something as well when it comes to exposing ourselves to other experiences, and in this case, these experiences would be other people. You and I have both had the privilege. I think it's been an amazing experience for the both of us. We were a part of the LinkedIn recommendation challenge cohort, and I think that exposed us both to other entrepreneurs, and not just other entrepreneurs, other Black entrepreneurs. I think that also helped with our context too, who are successful, who speak differently, who think about solving problems, business challenges differently as well. And also we can see that they are in the thick of it with us. Their problems aren't so far removed from ours that it's not that we couldn't do what they did and emulate some of the patterns or habits that they have in order to become successful. What would be a first suggestion for how we could expose ourselves? I mean, I'll give one. So I think one of the first things is using the same tool that we use for the comparison trap to actually be a part of certain groups, right? I mean, it's a double-edged sword. So using social media to be a part of particular groups. I think it's easier to be a part of groups that we probably would have never thought we could step foot in the physical realm, right? Versus in the virtual realm.
Yeah.
Where all you just need is the invitation or the acceptance where somebody says, okay, we're just going to let this person in. And then you can get exposed to a world of people who think, not selling and spamming stuff, because you know that there are groups that are out there that are like that. But, but being a part of authentic social experiences, groups where people just want to learn and grow from each other. And with each other, giving advice and not just wanting to sell their own stuff, so that would be my first one. The easiest one is using the same platform that we're on right now. And exposing ourselves to not just posts and memes and, but actual people in real groups. So that would be my first one. What about you, bro? Like what
I would just take your first point even deeper. And obviously you and I have both been exposed to this, what I'm about to say, because of our good friend, Robert Youngblood, YB. And it is stuck with me what he shared in one of our network meetings. This idea of, he said it for LinkedIn specifically, but I use it for life, is identifying those. He said every connection, you should know the person. You should know them. You should, or you either know them or you want to get to know them. If they don't fit in those two columns, there really isn't effort that needs to be put there. You need to remove them from the environment. If you're not interested in getting to know them, or if you do not know them, they don't need to be in the environment. That's something that I've tried to do, that I have done, period. Not just a LinkedIn thing, but just period. So for me, it's that taking your step further is identifying where you're trying to go. Number one, what are you trying to do with your life? Where are you trying to go? What are the goals? Then identifying, or should I say evaluating your current environment. Who needs to be there? Who does not need to be there? Or who needs to be there? And who do you want to get to know who's there? Who needs to become the need to be there? I don't know if that makes sense or not. But this idea of
to be there,
this evaluate your current environment. Who is there that you know? Who is there that you're not really sure of? You don't know them well. They're just somehow they're in your circle, and you need to either get to know them or you need to chuck the deuces. That's what I see as far as the first step in this. A 1A to the one. And then a 1B would be to actually find the networks or have the conversation with people who are in these type of networks to figure out how to get into them. Because that was what was vital for me, was that I didn't even know that a lot of these things existed until conversations with people that I want to get to know or had already known who were in the direction. But first I had to identify the direction I'm trying to go in first. When I was able to identify the direction I was going, then be able to evaluate that environment and start to talk to the people that's on that direction or in that direction rather. And then expose myself to those networks and find out about other networks. And that gives you the opportunity to get to know people who are on that trajectory that you want to or desire to be on. And you start to get exposed to things that you had no idea was a reality, because I don't care who you are. You have what it takes to go to whatever level you desire to be on. It just comes down to exposure and action, in my opinion. Get exposed and then act.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Hopefully all that makes sense.
No, it did make sense, because you're talking about two things, and I'm glad that you took it a step, not just a step further, but you backed it up. I said there are just groups out there that you can just be a part of that, helps you to, to use the word, to be exposed to new experiences and conversations. But you said, hold up, wait a minute, back up. Let's not talk about the entire group just yet. How about we deal with your existing network first? The individuals, start qualifying the people. And it's painstaking work. But if we start to clean, so in email marketing, it's called like cleaning your subscription list, right? There are people who are no longer subscribers, or they're no longer active, or just clean the list, clean it up, and you keep the people. This, as if it was an email list, you keep the active subscribers, those who are engaged. And what we're saying is that we're keeping the active or the active connections, or the connections that we would want to be active, we keep those. Everyone else, we either remove or no, that's it. There's no either. It's just everyone else we remove. It's interesting because then that means that for many of us, our social circle, the number of friends, if it's on like Facebook, or followers, if it's on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok, or they start to get very, and it's kind of difficult for certain platforms like Snapchat. I don't even, do people still use Snapchat?
I don't use Snapchat,
right? because the engagement is a little bit different there, But anyway, the point is, you're saying the list is going to get shorter, but then it's like with that shorter list, you then find the network opportunities through those individuals versus looking for the huge network event. You're qualifying the people first, identifying whether or not you want to establish or sustain relationships with them. And then through them or with them, you then say, show me your world, in a sense. That is a very, I was gonna say that was a very YB way of approaching you, but that's really what it is, though, right? It really is the intentionality on first identifying the person, and knowing that person has the key to an actual network that, based on what, and you also mentioned this too, based on what you're looking for. So you have to be clear on what you want. They will open up a world that you didn't even know existed because you were looking for that particular, you had that particular goal or direction.
Idea where you're trying to go.
Yeah, where you're trying to go.
And I want to mention this as well. I think it's also important to value every what's the word I'm looking for? Every connection. Okay. And what I mean by that is what I've learned from what we was exposed to in the LinkedIn recommendation challenge was every person I meet, there's value in that conversation and connection. There's value in things that they talk about. Even if you don't know who they are, if you're in Walmart and you just run into somebody, like the other day I ran into someone I have an office downtown, and I ran into someone who does who's an attorney, and we just had a normal conversation. But within that conversation, I took away some key notes. Wow. I was like, wow, I don't think like that. I identified something that I was like, I want to unpack that within myself. So every connection, even if it's just your parents, you may not have thought about the conversations that you all have as something that you can leverage in your personality or in your business. But everyone has something to offer. Don't believe that something is a waste. Everything has value depending on your lens and how you approach it.
Wow, that's good. Hey, listen, we're gonna wrap this up, man. This was great. For those of you that are, just coming in, we've been talking about how to overcome the biggest obstacle, which is you. And we looked at a few ways of doing this. We looked at, how to not necessarily suppress or even eliminate the imposter syndrome as much as developing new habits and practices. And one of the practices that we can start doing is looking through your own network right now, your own social network, identifying, qualifying individuals who you want to keep relationships with, or you want to have those relationships with. Purge the rest out. There's no reason to have this huge list of people that you're not going to connect with anyway, but understanding that each of these individuals have insights, have experiences, have networks that you don't have. And with that's all cool. But what E. Brooks just said is you need to have a particular goal and direction first. That is going to determine who you keep in your circle, who you decide to engage with, and even also the new insight or the experiences that you leverage as you go along the path to the goal and the destination that you are headed towards. Any final thoughts? This was great. This was really great.
All I got to say is this is personal to me, and Chris, you know this already, but absolutely. Don't allow yourself to be the reason why you didn't get it done. The thing that I try to ask myself or try to keep before me all the time, what I am keeping before me is this idea of you do not want to say what if. And the last thing in addition to that is you do not want to say what if and that answer be, I'm asking what if is because of me. I'm the reason I'm in the what if stage.
Yeah.
So whoever is listening, you have it. You just have to do it. Yeah. Literally, just have to do it.
Let's go do it. Y'all, we out. Y'all already know where to find us. Where should they find you, or should we be on the lookout for anything that's coming up on your side of things? We'll definitely start plugging in people for where you are and what you're doing. So let us know. If not, that's okay. But we're gonna circle back around.
Yeah, stuff is coming. You can always catch me on Facebook at Eliot Brooks. That's 1L1T. You also always can reach me on Instagram at Eliot Brooks 1L1T. There's some things that's about to happen. Some things about to take off.
Some things about to take off, y'all. Y'all better be on the lookout. All right, y'all. We're out. We'll see you guys in the next.